G-Day happened. We're ready to talk about it on the Locked On Bulldogs podcast. Who shined? Why does it matter? And what should your takeaways be next on Locked On Bulldogs?
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Daniel with Locked On Bulldogs here, your team every day. So happy that you are with us. Excited to have you on this Monday edition of Locked On Bulldogs. Today's episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Learn more about them at monarchmoney.com. More on them in a moment. But happy you're here. If you're an everydayer, glad that you're here. It's a great week to be a part of the show because we've got spring practice observations, G-Day takeaways that we want to dive into this week. If you're a first listener, we really appreciate you making us your first listen of the day. That's a simple way that helps us out a bunch. And tell a friend about the show. If you're a part of the 199, you stay till the end, you're a loyal third segment listener, then spread the word. The offseason is going to be a fun one. We got lots to discuss, lots to talk about. Clint and I will not be short on opinions. And listen, whether you like it or not, it's going to be a big news week for college football. Transfer portal window is going to open. The Nico situation, which, if you're Tennessee, first of all, kudos to Tennessee for not paying who we all can agree is an average quarterback. Just flatly average. Kudos to Tennessee for not paying him. Also, Tennessee, LOL, because that's a tough scene. It's not a great look for the brand, for the Power T, for any of it. Tennessee fans are handling it well, though. They are handling it with class and grace and dignity, as you would expect. All right, let's jump into G-Day. Disclosures up front. Clint and I were not there, so we did not witness the game. We were in the same boat as you. Yes, we knew that it was not going to be televised. We were aware of that going in. Neither of us could get away from our responsibilities and to get down there. So we're in the same boat that you are in, but we've seen things, we've read things, we've heard things, we've talked to people, and we have some thoughts. I have some thoughts. The first one is this: the number one thing that we said we wanted to see at G-Day, if you go back last week and listen to that episode, I believe it was a Thursday episode, maybe a Wednesday episode, I'm not sure. The number one thing that we said that we wanted to see at G-Day this year was points. We wanted to see points put on the scoreboard. Now, you can't always read a lot into that. The way they run the simulations in the game, they set up special situations. It's not just like a cut and dry offense versus defense, regular clock, regular game. Obviously, Kirby's running a practice out there. But we wanted to see points put on the board. And there were points put on the board. 34-17 was the final score. There were a lot of points scored in this game. Now, you may be saying to yourself, well, Daniel, doesn't that mean that the defense was getting smoked? Doesn't that mean that the defense is lagging behind, that the defense is not up to par? This is the thing with a spring game. You're always going to, every good thing that happens in a spring game is also a bad thing that happens in a spring game. And every bad thing that happens in a spring game is also a good thing that happens in the spring game. And so it's really tough to come away with any hard and fast takeaways. But both Clint and I agreed that we trust this defense to progress and be great more than we trust this offense. Yes, there are notable departures on the defense. Michael Williams, Malachi Starks, Dan Jackson, particularly in the back end of the secondary, it's been well documented. Along the defensive front, there's been significant departures, well documented. So yes, there are new faces. Yes, there are young players. Yes, there's unproven talent. Yes, we're going to be relying on some transfers. Yes, we will get into all of that. But overall, we trust this defense. We think the talent is there. We think the guys stepping in to larger roles this year with probably one notable exception, have a chance to be, I'm not even going to mince words, have a chance to be much better than the players that they are replacing. Malachi Starks would be the exception to that. I don't think anybody playing safety this year opposite KJ Bolden is going to even sniff Malachi Starks territory. I get that. But in the other places where Georgia's making key replacements, I think the replacements have a chance to be significantly better. I think there's players coming along who are going to continue to grow. Justin Williams and Chris Cole, probably talk about them tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. My two favorite players on the team, and this just in, maybe Kirby's two favorite players on the team, if you listen to his post G-Day presser. We trust the defense to get along. And so what we needed to see was some of the early signs that this offense was going to be able to click. New quarterback, obviously. New group of wide receivers, obviously. What's the chemistry going to look like? What's the dynamic going to look like in the passing game? You know, G-Day, you're going to get a lot of throws. They're going to be out there pitching it around the yard all the time. And so is the offense going to be able to move the ball, sustain drives, and most notably, hit big plays and put it in the end zone? Two things that they struggled to do last year mightily. Red zone offense was outside of the top 50 nationally at Georgia. That's unacceptable. And explosive plays, big plays were lacking, particularly in the passing game last year. Let's be honest, the entire passing game was lacking, but explosive plays particularly. We saw that at G-Day. We saw both of those things happen. Georgia put the ball in the end zone several times. Both quarterbacks had 2 touchdown passes. Again, we'll probably talk about the quarterbacks tomorrow as well. But both quarterbacks had multiple touchdown passes. And Georgia was able to move the ball at times explosively through the air. They took a lot of downfield shots. Now, I don't think Georgia's going to come out running a Mike Leach air raid this year and just be hucking it all over the yard. But at G-Day, it's nice to see that that is there. And there are people that walk away from G-Day with some concerns about the secondary. They made a few big plays, but they did get beat significantly. I get that. I understand all that. I was very happy to see points on the board. I was very happy to see this offense move the ball. I was very happy to see players get involved, new guys get involved, returning players get involved in significant ways, and start to think through, all right, well, there is actually quite a few options on this roster of guys that Georgia can turn to in order to make things work offensively. I think that's the biggest question mark on this team, is how is the offense going to be able to perform? And I think G-Day doesn't answer any of those questions, but certainly eased my mind a little bit when it comes to some of those significant questions on offense. We're going to come back and talk about some of the significant reasons why Georgia was able to move the ball on offense and score points. And what I think is the most exciting takeaway from G-Day, which is the pass catchers, the wide receivers in particular. We're going to talk about them right after these. But first, I want to let you know about Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out and online shopping and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app. There's tons of those. Monarch Money is a complete financial command center. You track all your accounts, all your investments, all your spending in one place. And so you can stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. When I started using Monarch Money, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery, on eating out, and now I budget smarter and I save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, I get to use Monarch Money to check all of my finances, track all of my spending, and plan for my long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Let's talk some wide receivers. Look, this is the group, right? This is the group that everybody was excited about coming into the season, nervous about, anxious about. We didn't really know what the wide receivers were going to offer us, but we were hopeful. They were so bad last year, some in particular who shall not be named, so bad last year. We were hopeful that the wide receivers were going to be a significant step up, that the pass catchers were going to be a significant step up. And I think early indications are that looks to be the case. Let's talk about some returning guys that I thought played really well at G-Day. Guys named Sokovie White and London Humphreys. Now, London Humphreys, 4 catches, 77 yards, and a couple of touchdowns. He was the black team's best receiver by a mile, and he looked really good. Kirby was asked specifically about him in the press conference and said that London Humphreys is leaps and bounds ahead of where he was last year, that it really took him, and Kirby said this in a way that was a credit to London Humphreys, that he came in last year with the mindset, I am here to learn. I'm here to grow. I'm here to learn this offense. And he spent the year just digesting as much as he possibly could. There were a lot of us, myself included, Clint included, who were pining to see more from London Humphreys last year. You saw a glimmer or a flash every once in a while, but it felt like he couldn't get into the game regularly. He couldn't get consistent snaps. And with as bad as the wide receiver group was, it was always befuddling to me. And the conclusion we were forced to draw was maybe London Humphreys just doesn't have it. It seems as though, now, again, we're not going to make a big deal about G-Day. It's more the Kirby comments that make me interested in this. It seems as if London Humphreys was just not super quick to pick up the offense, right? And some players adapt and respond at different rates. He was not super quick to pick up the offense, struggled a little bit in some key aspects. And we know that if you struggle in things like pass protection, if you struggle in things like downfield blocking as a wide receiver, if you struggle in like assignment football, like if you're supposed to come in and crack on the edge and you miss that block in practice, you ain't getting in that game for Kirby Smart and Mike Bobo. And so if there were some struggles there, it seems like London Humphreys spent the offseason and last season really learning and digesting this offense. And now, at least based on what we saw at G-Day, it seems as though he's going to be able to play with a lot more freedom this year, which is an exciting thing if you're a Georgia fan. Sokovie White, similarly, he did not have the catches, or the touchdowns. He had 1 touchdown, but multiple catches of 20 yards or more for Sokovie White. He has got speed. He's got athleticism. He has long been thought of as a guy that if he could consistently be good enough to see the field, he could be a valuable weapon for Georgia in the passing game. Again, we didn't really see any of that, but Kirby mentioned him in the postgame and acted like his growth had been really significant as well. And then you get into some of the newcomers. Zachariah Branch had a catch, a really nice catch, a long one for 36 yards. He is going to be a big play threat for this offense. And then the 2 freshmen, Talon Taylor and CJ Wiley, both had multiple catches in this game. Neither scored a touchdown, but CJ Wiley in particular, a 35-yard reception. Both of them averaged over 10 yards per catch. And both of those guys, when you put the ball in their hands, and I put Zachariah Branch in the same category, even though he did not record his long catch was a bomb. It was not a run after the catch. CJ Wiley's was a run after the catch. But when you put the ball in those guys' hands, they are playmakers. They are elite playmakers who are able to do things against the defense that is significant. And then you got guys like Dylan Bell, who, of course, shined at G-Day, 5 catches for 78 yards. Also had a bomb, also had a long one. And then the tight ends were the tight ends. Like Oscar Delp was Oscar Delp. Lawson Lucky was Lawson Lucky. We got some Jaden Riddell action. Like there was a lot to like about the way that the passing game came together, particularly from the pass catchers and wide receivers. An injury, Cole Spear. It seems like dealing with a lower leg injury. We don't know too many details about that. It doesn't seem great. I will say that between Cole Spear and Sokovie White, who I kind of had in this same category coming into the day of like one of those guys might pop. It definitely feels like that is Sokovie White based on what I said earlier, and the Cole Spear injury doesn't do anything to help that. There's a lot to be excited about from the freshmen who Kirby raved about, said they've come a long, long way, as much as Kirby will rave about a freshman, and from the returners. And then there's one name in particular, one guy that Kirby singled out and talked about specifically. We've talked about him before on the show, a guy that I think is going to be a monumentally impactful receiver, along with an incoming transfer who we have not yet mentioned. And we will talk about those guys right after these. But first, let's talk about SupplyHouse. Get the supplies that you need from the site for the skilled trades SupplyHouse. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical, SupplyHouse is the reliable way to order your products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with complete inventory from over 200,000 parts and 400 plus top brands, you'll get exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? SupplyHouse offers expert support and industry-leading service. You'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, take their free Trade Master program. Offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Wide receivers shined on G-Day. The passing numbers were, I thought, really good. 309 yards passing for Gunnar Stockton, 172 for Ryan Puglisi. The red team had 365 yards passing. The black team had 234 yards passing, a few from Coulter Ginn. And I thought overall the passing game was not just prolific, right? There's a lot of attempts in there, right? 38 attempts for the red team and 50 attempts for the black team. As you would expect, a lot more efficiency coming from the first team offense than there was from the second team offense, as to be expected. Ryan Puglisi did struggle a little bit with accuracy and putting the ball in some specific places. Again, we're going to talk about the quarterbacks, I think, tomorrow. So let's focus on two guys. Both that we have not mentioned yet. One, we haven't mentioned because I was saving him for this last segment, even though he only had one catch for 17 yards. That's Colby Young. And another that we haven't mentioned yet because he didn't really do anything. He was targeted 2 times for 0 catches. That is the big time exciting transfer out of Texas A&M, Noah Thomas. Now, how much time am I going to spend worrying about Noah Thomas? Because London Humphreys had 77 yards in the G-Day game and Noah Thomas had 0 yards in the G-Day game. That must mean that London Humphreys is going to play a billion times more snaps this year than Noah Thomas, that he's, 77 times the wide receiver that Noah Thomas is. No, of course it doesn't mean that. I'm not reading a ton into it. What I am going to read into is Kirby Smart singling out Colby Young as a problem for defensive backs on the outside, a problem for his defensive backs on the outside. Kirby's not looking ahead to the Alabama game or the Texas game or the Tennessee game. He's not worried about those teams. When he says Colby Young is a problem for defensive backs on the outside, he's talking about his defensive backs, right? He's talking about Daniel Harris. He's talking about Ellis Robinson. He's talking about those guys. So Colby Young is causing problems on the outside. He has a skill set, a frame that I think, honestly, Georgia fans have slept on a little bit, forgotten about, because we all assumed that this kid was going to be off the team. We all assumed that his Georgia career was over. And so now that he's back and we allow ourselves to remember what he was like at the beginning of last season, we remember that was a significant loss that Georgia endured on the wide receiver core, a group that was significantly in need of a big-time playmaker like Colby Young. And now you pair him with a guy like Noah Thomas. This is where I think this Georgia offense has the potential to be so good, is when you got two guys like that on the outside, and they won't always play together, but particularly in the red zone, when you could put both those guys on the field and you got Oscar Delpa in the middle, you have three elite-sized athletes who are matchup nightmares in the red zone. Like a 15-yard back shoulder fade from in the red zone to one of those guys is an absolute nightmare. But when your third best cover guy, or a linebacker in the case of Oscar Delp, is trying to defend that, or your number two corner is matched up against Colby Young because the other one's on Noah Thomas, that's a nightmare scenario, right? I don't know that outside of the red zone, you're going to see a ton of Noah Thomas, Colby Young sets. And I think that's because there are too many other guys like Dylan Bell, like Sokovie White, like London Humphreys, like Talon Taylor, like Zachariah Branch, who, like CJ Wiley, who are going to demand playing time on the field. And so you're going to see more of those guys. So you have more diversity in your options. You have more guys who are typical big play wideouts. The one thing about Thomas is he is not your typical big play wideout, and really neither is Colby Young. That's not where those guys are going to shine. They are touchdown makers. They are first down getters. They are key conversions and moving the sticks and scoring points. That's where you're going to find those guys excel, where they shine. And so you're going to see them maybe on third downs playing together. You're going to see them in the red zone maybe playing together. But then Georgia's got other options. But that group in particular is one that I am really locked in on. And again, I know Noah Thomas didn't do anything at G-Day, but what Colby Young did show out there in live reps, obviously catching, making a catch, scoring a touchdown, doing what he does, one catch for a touchdown. That's what Colby Young does. Those are the kinds of stat lines: one catch, 4 targets, 1 touchdown, 17 yards. You're going to see that stat line for Colby Young multiple times this season. I'm telling you, he's not going to be the most prolific receiver on Georgia's team, but he's going to score a lot of points. And Noah Thomas is going to as well. I think both of those guys are going to be a problem for Georgia, again, in what was, if not the most significant, I would say the most significant offseason or offensive deficiency was drops last year. I would say the second most significant offensive deficiency last year was red zone offense. And so the fact that we have both of those guys and we're going to be able to utilize them together or in place of one another, it's a significant piece of depth and functionality for this Georgia offense. And guys like Gunnar Stockton are going to thrive, I think, because of it. Speaking of Gunnar Stockton, tomorrow we're going to break down the quarterbacks. A lot of you are freaking out about the quarterbacks. There are a lot of people who are feeling a lot of feelings. Some clown wrote an article saying that Georgia may need to go to the transfer portal to get a quarterback because of what we saw at G-Day. We're going to talk about that. Whether or not I agree with that, I think probably you have an idea if you're here at the 25-minute mark of the episode today, I think you have an idea of how I feel about that. But we're going to talk about it tomorrow. We're also going to talk about my two favorite players on the roster, period. We're going to talk about what Kirby says about them, what Kirby thinks about them, and we're going to get into some corners. I thought there were some interesting things said about the corners from Kirby Smart, and we saw some interesting things. We'll talk about that more on tomorrow's show. Make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. That would help us out a tremendous amount. If you're not and you're still here, just go ahead and click that subscribe. And if you're not subscribed on YouTube yet, which I can't imagine that you're not, but maybe you're new and we welcome you. I'm glad that you're here. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel as well. Those things, those kind of small things just help us out a bunch, and we really appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow breaking down more of my G-Day thoughts here on the Locked On Bulldogs podcast, and I will see you guys then.